Welcome back to the deep dive. Today we're embarking on, well, a truly profound and timeless journey. We're diving into one of the most beloved and influential spiritual texts ever, Rumi's epic masterpiece, the Masnavi. And we're really honing in on a powerful, maybe sometimes overlooked section from Book One. It's a real gem, I think, for anyone seeking deeper understanding.
Absolutely. I mean, many people know Rumi for his lyrical poems about love, that sort of longing of the soul. But
Yeah.
the Masnavi, it's just so much more than beautiful verses. It really
Yeah.
is this vast ocean of wisdom, stories, insights. And it's presented in a way that feels both ancient, obviously, but also incredibly fresh. It speaks directly to the human experience, right across the centuries.
Yeah, it really does.
And this particular section we're exploring today, it offers these incredibly rich metaphors and direct practical guidance, stuff that's just as relevant now as it was when Rumi first wrote it down. It's about understanding the nature of profound change, those often hidden processes of growth, and also the crucial, sometimes challenging role of guidance on any meaningful path, whether that's spiritual transformation, professional development, or even just navigating big personal transitions.
Right. So our mission, as always, is to pull out the most potent nuggets of knowledge from these sources, to maybe uncover some surprising facts, deeper meanings, and, most importantly, connect them directly to your own life, your own insights. So let's get ready to really understand what Rumi has to say here. I think this is going to be a fascinating exploration.
Definitely.
So Rumi sets this beautiful, almost ethereal scene right at the start. He paints this kind of cosmic picture. He talks about celestial stars being part of the moon's whole and how each image is now beckoning, glad tidings, everyone, here comes the spring. It's this big, hopeful view of renewal. But then he immediately shifts.
Yeah, he shifts from that grand celestial opening to something very grounded, but profoundly insightful. This core metaphor that gets right to the heart of transformation. The blossom and the fruit.
Okay, the blossom and the fruit.
And what's truly fascinating here, maybe a bit counterintuitive for many of us, is the relationship he highlights between them. It's almost paradoxical. He asks this question, sort of a riddle. When blossoms radiant like a coat of mail, how then can fruits their charming form unveil?
Like the blossom's beauty actually hides the fruit.
Exactly. It's almost like its prominence prevents the fruit from emerging. And then he gives this profound, almost startling answer. When blossom falls, that's when fruit takes its place. When bodies are destroyed, souls lift their face.
Wow. When bodies are destroyed, that's strong language.
It is. And he seals the analogy. Fruit is the spirit. Blossoms is its form. He even adds, when one's decreased, the other starts to grow.
Okay, let's unpack this because that's quite a challenging idea, isn't it? This notion that something beautiful, something maybe we've identified with, something visible, it needs to be, well, destroyed or fall away for something new, something essential to actually emerge. In our world, we're always encouraged to acquire, build, maintain. We fear loss. Rumi's view here feels profoundly countercultural.
It really does. We cling to what is, right? We fear endings, dissolution. But he suggests that very shedding, that breaking down, is the prerequisite for deeper, more lasting growth. The blossom is the outward show, the form, maybe the ego's presentation, but the fruit is the nourishing essence, the spirit.
Okay.
And Rumi doesn't just leave this as an abstract idea.
Yeah.
He uses these incredibly common, relatable examples to drive it home, to show its universality. He asks, how can bread nourish till it's broken up?
Right.
Can uncrushed grapes become wine in your cup? Unless some healing herbs are ground with it, how can a medicine give benefit?
Okay, bread, grapes, herbs, things we understand need processing.
Precisely. Think about that. Bread, the staple of life, must be broken. Grapes must be crushed for wine. Healing herbs must be ground to release their properties. So it raises this important question for us. What looks like an ending, a breaking down, even destruction from one angle, is often a necessary step for a deeper, more profound form of life, nourishment, or benefit to emerge.
So it's about transformation from potential to actualization.
Yes, and that process often involves a transition that looks like loss from our limited view.
So if I'm getting this right, it's not just about things changing, but about an active, sometimes maybe even painful process of deconstruction being essential for true value to come out. It's challenging us to look past the immediate appearance of decay or loss and see the deeper ripening process underneath. How does this translate to our personal journeys then?
Well, if we connect this to the bigger picture of our own lives, it's about understanding that transformation. True spiritual or personal ripeness,
Yeah.
it often requires this deep process of letting go.
Letting go of what specifically?
It could be old habits, old identities, old ways of thinking, the blossom of our comfortable existence, maybe. That has to dissolve for the true essence, the fruit of our being, to fully ripen. Think about, say, a career change might mean letting go of a comfortable title or status. Personal growth might demand shedding old fears or limiting beliefs.
Okay, the blossoms we cling to.
Exactly. This spiritual lesson teaches us that true nourishment, true healing, often comes from that process of breaking down, of surrendering to change, or even experiencing what feels like a loss. But that paves the way for something far more substantial and lasting. It's about trusting the process, really, even when it feels like a dismantling.
That makes a lot of sense. It really reframes how we look at endings, not as failures, but as necessary phases. Now, Rumi takes this idea of necessary change and applies it, quite dramatically, actually, to our spiritual journey. He shifts gears immediately to the critical role of a guide. He directly addresses his disciple, Hosamadin, and launches into this incredibly detailed, very emphatic section about the nature and necessity of a spiritual guide. He says, "Write down about the guide what I now say, and choose him. He's the essence of the way."
The essence of the way, that's key.
Yeah.
The guide, in Rumi's view, isn't just a teacher pointing the way. They are the way, in a sense. They're depicted with incredible reverence, almost cosmic significance. Rumi calls them the summer, others autumn's blight.
Wow.
And like the moon, well, they're the dark at night. So the guide brings warmth, light, life, where others might bring decay or confusion. He describes Hosamadin, who was chronologically young, as an old sage who is mature with God, though not in age.
Interesting paradox.
Right. Without beginning, he's extremely old, a rare pearl whose description can't be told. Quote, "He grows more potent, just like vintage wine, especially the drink that is divine." So this highlights the guide's deep, timeless wisdom, a wisdom that transcends age, infused with divine potency, like fine wine improving. This isn't just a knowledgeable person, it's a living embodiment of the path, someone whose wisdom flows from a much deeper source.
But what really stands out, maybe especially for listeners who, value independence, self-reliance, is Rumi's stark, almost alarming warning. Don't try this path alone, first choose a guide.
Yeah, it's strong.
Its dangerous trials will leave you petrified. He doesn't mince words at all, and this bit is crucial. Even on routes which numerous times you've used, without a guide, you're hopelessly confused.
Think about that. Even familiar paths can confuse without guidance.
Right, so for this new, uncharted way, the spiritual path, you absolutely must keep focused on your guide, don't turn away. It really emphasizes the profound difference between familiar territory, where maybe we feel confident alone, and the unknown depths of true transformation.
Indeed. And the perils Rumi describes, they're not to be underestimated. If you're not safe in his protective shade, Rumi warns, the monster's wails will leave you stunned, afraid, diverting you straight into further harm. Much shrewder men than you could not keep calm.
The monster's wails, what does that represent? Inner demons, external distractions.
It could be both. Internal confusion, fear, ego traps, but also misleading external influences or paths. He even references the Quran, mentioning those who went astray and how the wicked Satan made them pay. He lured them all 1,000 miles from here, reducing them to nakedness and fear. This really emphasizes the spiritual and psychological dangers of going it alone. It's not just about being inefficient. It's about active sabotage, disorientation. Force is both internal and external, like unseen psychological traps or maybe misleading ideologies. Without that guiding light, even the sharpest minds can be led astray.
And this idea of our inner struggles needing guidance, it's a powerful setup for Rumi's solution here, which leads us to one of the most vivid, unforgettable metaphors in the text, the ass or donkey. Rumi uses this very direct, almost shocking image. He cautions, don't be an ass, don't let your passions lead.
Yes, very direct.
Grab hold of its thick neck and pull it back towards the knowing guide's specific track. He paints this clear picture, almost funny but deeply serious. If left alone, this donkey's bound to stray across the field towards the mounds of hay. Don't you forget to hold with force its leash, or it will bolt for miles to find hashish. A donkey drugged, what greater enemy? So what does this donkey represent for us? What's the meaning here?
Well, if we connect this to the bigger picture, the donkey represents our own unbridled lower desires, our ego, our impulses. Rumi often calls it the carnal soul, that part of us driven purely by earthly appetites, immediate gratification, raw instincts.
Okay, the impulsive part of us.
Exactly. It's this powerful image of self-sabotage if we don't exercise conscious control and, crucially, aren't guided by a higher wisdom.
Huh.
That donkey, our unbridled self, isn't just prone to wandering aimlessly. It's actively seeking out mounds of hay, immediate fleeting comforts. Or worse, hashish, anything that dulls its awareness and leads it further from the true path.
So hashish could be modern distractions, mindless scrolling, escapism.
Absolutely. Anything that numbs us to our deeper purpose, constant distraction. And Rumi's advice here is pretty radical. If you don't know the proper path, just do the opposite of what it wants you to. Consult them, then do just the opposite, or else you'll always be regretting it.
Wow, do the opposite of what the donkey wants.
It implies our default impulses are often diametrically opposed to our higher purpose, and that friendship with desire you can't afford because it leads you off the path towards the Lord. For me, the single most surprising takeaway here isn't just self-control, but understanding that without that clear external compass, the guide, our natural inclination is toward those immediate comforts, which Rumi reveals are actually like drugs that hinder our true progress.
Okay, so if our own inner donkey is so problematic, so prone to self-sabotage, leading us away, what's the solution? Rumi doesn't just leave us there, right? He provides an answer. Nothing conquers passion better than the company of fellow travelers can.
Exactly. There's strength in community and shared purpose around the guide. And this leads to a really profound segment where the Prophet advises Ali, "Line of God, brave hero of my pride, don't count on courage on its own to cope. Take refuge, too, beneath the tree of hope.
The tree of hope.
Enter the realm of that pure intellect whom no opponent can from truth deflect." This tree of hope, this pure intellect, it's clearly a poetic reference to the spiritual guide and the wisdom they embody. The guide is depicted as having a shadow is just like Mount Qaf in size.
Mount Qaf, what's that?
It's a mythical mountain range in Persian mythology, representing the ultimate distant realm. It signifies the guide's vast, encompassing wisdom and spiritual presence. His spirit, like the phoenix, soars the skies. It's a sanctuary, Rumi says, from the hidden enemy's tight cage, referring back to those dangers of the lower self, the donkey, the distractions. And maybe most significantly, Rumi states that seeking this guide's sanctuary is, of all the acts of worship, it's the best.
The best act of worship. Not prayer, not fasting, but seeking the guide.
That's what he says. It's presented as the supreme act of devotion.
Okay, now perhaps the most challenging part of this whole section, certainly the most radical, is the call for ultimate, almost unquestioning surrender to the guide. Rumi brings up the story of Moses and his master Khezr from the Quran.
Right, a very powerful and often debated story.
Where Khezr does things that seem destructive or just plain wrong to Moses sinking a boat, even killing a child. But they're later revealed as part of a higher, unseen wisdom. And the point is, Moses shouldn't have questioned, even if the guide destroys their boat or kills a child. Moses' impatience, his questioning, led to their separation. This is a level of trust that's, well, it goes way beyond normal relationships. It almost demands we suspend our own critical thinking. How do listeners today reconcile such absolute trust with the need for critical thought, avoiding manipulation? How do we even choose such a guide responsibly in our, individualistic world?
That's an incredibly important question and a valid challenge. Why would Rumi use such extreme, almost shocking examples? I think it points to the deepest possible level of trust, one rooted in understanding, or at least faith, that the guide's actions aren't random. They aren't based on personal whim. They're part of a divine plan or aligned with universal truths that just transcend our limited human view.
So it's trust in something beyond the person.
In a way, yes. As Rumi quotes from the Quran, referring to the guide acting with divine authority, "His hand is as my own, and up above their hands rests God's alone." The guide, in this very specific context, acts as an extension of divine will. So the seemingly cruel act of slaying the boy, Rumi says it was to let him live with pure, eternal joy, meaning the boy would have grown up to be an oppressor, harming his devout parents. Khezr's action saved the parent's spiritual well-being and perhaps the boy's soul from worse deeds.
Okay, so there's a hidden higher reasoning.
Exactly. It underscores that the guide's perspective transcends our immediate understanding. Their hand is not but God's own hand. Now, the crucial point here isn't blind obedience to any authority figure. That's dangerous. It's about recognizing and surrendering to a wisdom that is undeniably profound and selfless. A wisdom that has demonstrably transcended the limitations of ego and personal desire. Choosing such a guide requires deep discernment. Looking at their character, their consistency, the fruits of their own journey, you could say. It's about discerning divine wisdom operating through a human form, not just following charisma.
That distinction is absolutely crucial, recognizing enlightened wisdom, not just giving up autonomy carelessly. What's also fascinating here is Rumi's conclusion that even those who thought they tried this journey alone were still subtly helped by guides, maybe without realizing it, through divine grace. They didn't walk alone. But crucially, he clarifies, if absent people can gain gifts galore, those present with the guide must gain much more. So, what's the real difference between being subtly helped and being directly connected?
It's the difference between, say, receiving a general unseen blessing and having tailored hands-on instruction for your specific path. Think of it like this. You might, by grace, avoid a pitfall on your journey without even knowing why you swerved. But with a direct guide, you're taught how to recognize pitfalls, how to navigate them, how to develop the inner strength to avoid them yourself next time.
Ah, okay. Active learning versus passive protection.
Exactly. The personal presence, that direct connection, it amplifies the blessings, the gifts immeasurably because it offers a direct transmission of knowledge, experience, spiritual energy, maybe. It's a living education, adapting to your unique needs rather than just a general unspoken aid. This deep, personalized guidance, Rumi suggests, accelerates growth and deepens understanding in ways an indirect connection just can't.
Wow. This has been an incredibly rich exploration into Rumi's Masnavi. Really deep. We've covered two incredibly potent themes today. First, that profound lesson. The blossom has to fall for the fruit to emerge. That shedding of the old, that breaking down, is needed for the essence to ripen and nourish. It challenges us to see loss not as an end, but as a crucial, fertile beginning.
Right. And second, the absolutely indispensable role of a spiritual guide. Rumi paints this guide as far more than just a teacher. They're a lamp, a protector, a source of ancient wisdom, a discerning hand on a journey filled with dangers both inside and out. He doesn't just offer beautiful poetry. He offers a practical, if demanding, roadmap for navigating the complexities of ourselves and the world towards a higher truth.
So thinking about all this, what stands out to you from this deep dive into Rumi's timeless wisdom? Perhaps it's that idea of embracing necessary endings for new beginnings in your own life, seeing what feels like destruction not as final, but as a vital step in a ripening process. Or maybe it's prompting a reflection on who your own guides are, those wise figures, mentors, maybe even communities, who help you navigate your uncharted paths and help keep your inner donkey from straying towards those distractions, those unhelpful desires.
Rumi's message, ultimately, I think, is one of hope and transformation. But it's a hope grounded in a really deep understanding of human nature and the challenges inherent in the spiritual journey. It prompts us to consider, are we willing to surrender our limited view for a greater vision? Are we open to the guidance, whether internal or external, that can lead us towards that profound and maybe eternal joy Rumi speaks of? It's a powerful reminder that sometimes the greatest leaps forward really do come from letting go and trusting a path that's bigger than our own immediate understanding.
A lot to think about there. Thank you for joining us on this exploration into Rumi's timeless wisdom. Until next time, keep exploring, keep learning, and keep diving deep.